Hey, this is Pierre-Yves Delacote talking. I wanted to share with you some material on the subject of when to use what in Microsoft 365. I gather a lot of different materials. I wanted to share that quickly with you. And if you're interested to have access to this material, just add a comment and I'll send it to you. So let's start with Microsoft 365 as a whole. So here, very interesting, very nice, again, very nice infographic made by Dr. Nitin, what's his name? Paranjapi, that summarize what is Office 365 in a nutshell, segmenting in different categories like creation, storing, execution, communication, analyzing, and automating. So I think it's a nice way to present things. I like it a lot. So you can use that content to communicate on, what is Microsoft 365 or Office 365. Another one I found pretty useful, and let me switch to a better view here, is provided by, I think, Customer Success Manager at Microsoft. I found that through one of them. So that's segmenting maybe in more details what you can do with Microsoft 365. So it's another segmentation, maybe with more details. Um, and in this presentation, there's also some sort of journey. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So you start with your content and what you use to produce your content, either PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and or even forms, and they make a differentiation with OneNote, and then it's move your story continues in either Word in either OneDrive or SharePoint, depending if you're working on the draft and personal data, then you're gonna store it in OneDrive. It shows some elements that are interesting. You can have access through any device, mobility included. You can deal with large files, and you can still share those documents. And if you want to switch to a collective interaction around this document, either you store in SharePoint for knowledge management, knowledge base need, or team needs. I will say more departmental or an intranet. So it's going to be SharePoint. And if you want to collaborate, then you use Teams. And there are some features that are available in Teams, like the conversation and honor, the meetings and stuff like that. And also you can manage tasks with Planner, adding the Planner to Teams. And the journey continues when we deal about communication. There are three ways to communicate: either Teams, Outlook, or Yammer, with all the features you can see when you should use either one. So I think that's a nice one. There's a very complicated one provided by Microsoft, which is called Mocha. Um, I don't remember exactly what it means, but it means something about Microsoft Office architecture or something like that. So let me try to show you in full mode here. Oops, I need to do it again. So in full mode, you can see the individual with all the needs that have an individual, all the needs around the team, the community, and there's also some features about business. And let me move a little bit further. A business optimization around it. That's dynamics. So that can be very overwhelming. That might help IT to understand better what can be provided. So that's another infographic. And now those are my own infographics around how to position the tool. So I think that's, an infographic saying OneDrive is for your personal, Teams is for the work done with your department or your team. SharePoint is for finalized and published documents. So it's presenting again. I'm struggling to move around, but OneDrive is for my documents, draft. Teams is for living documents. You're working on documents, and SharePoint is for final document, like departmental document or global department with um, the concept of anywhere access on any device, being able to co-author documents, be able to sync document on your desktop if you're a desktop, and being able to secure a document with no data loss, and documents are always current, so you have access to the latest version and you can go back on version. So that's another infographic that I usually use with uh, my customers. So me for OneDrive, we for Teams, and us for SharePoint. This is another matrix I built that I think had quite a success. It's position, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, and Yammer, showing the two main usages, the user experience, how difficult it is, the main benefits, two main pitfalls, the people you're targeting, the individual benefits, etc. You can read all these metrics. I'm not going to read everything, but that helps to better understand what product does what and what are the benefits and pitfalls. So that will help some of the people to decide which tool to use when, and to better understand what are the business benefits of each of them. Another way that's just a new one, I didn't have the time to design it, but a more simple way to position Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, Yammer, and OneDrive is to explain, usually what you're doing in Teams when you're communicating is more for taking actions, where the work is happening. Outlook is more for guidance. SharePoint is more, information that you're sharing. Yammer is to share more around ideas, and OneDrive is more for brand draft. And it's another way to position the product, maybe less crowded than the previous slide, and depending on the number of people, depending on how long it will last, how long the information should last in Teams, Outlook, Yammer, etc. The kind of use case, and the final one is typical thing that you're doing, commercial work. You can consider Teams as a meeting room. Outlook is more communication. SharePoint is more storage place, like a shelf. Another simple way to position it, I like this one. It's very simple, very easy to embed in the communication in email. So you can see that here I position just like OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, and Yammer will be compared to a building. So if you were in building, my room will be OneDrive. That's where I store my stuff. Teams will be our meeting room. That's where we, join and work together on a project, for example. The library will be where you store your documents that are accessible to everybody. So that's the library at SharePoint. And the cafeteria is where social things are happening, small talk are happening, and brainstorming is happening. So I think it's a good way to position it simply. Regarding the communication, I have, same slide I presented earlier. So if you want to just focus on communication, communicate about what is the communication, depending, are you using Teams, Outlook, or Yammer? That's another way also to segment the communication. When do I use chat, group chat, meeting, channel, email, Yammer announcement, Yammer to brainstorm, Yammer to find expertise. So another infographic. Here's a new one I just started. but based on what I need to do. I need to inform, then I will use, if I need to inform an individual, I will use chat. If I need to inform a team, I will probably use a channel post. So if I have a team, I use channel post. If I don't have a team, I might want to create a group chat. Um, I need to inform a department. And the last one is the organization. Um, so I need to do channel post if I have a team for the department, of course. And if I need to communicate, inform all the organization, I need to do Yammer post. The little asterisk is to say that maybe you're not ready yet, so maybe you're still going to use Outlook to communicate to a department. Maybe you're going to still use Outlook to communicate to the organization. But at least I have a link to a SharePoint communication site where the information is so people don't have to go back on their inbox to find, when was the last communication that I needed to read. They have access directly to the SharePoint site. So I segmented by some sort of I use cases. I need to discuss what should I use. I need to make a decision. So I try to segment it by also the task you're trying to achieve. So, for example, when you need to make a decision, it's better to call people, eventually escalate in video. But when you're need to make a decision with a team, then you need to have a meeting. That's obvious. And when you do that with a department, you might want to do webcast. Um, First to extend the capabilities, and also maybe if you want to register or join. I need to convince, same thing, I think when you need to convince an individual, you need to have a eye contact, you need to be able to better understand what people are saying with their body. And it's a way also to convince people with gesture and so on. So you can people can see if you're genuine, more genuine, seeing your face, and if you just hear your voice, having the complete vision and voice and video that is important. Obviously, the better way to convince people is a face-to-face meeting, but I'm talking in a virtual world or a hybrid world. So here I classified. I need to train, so you might need an individual peer-to-peer connection. You might want to screen share, so to show how to do one thing. And I listed other communication situation. So let me know if you identify other situation. I will be interested to see and recommend what tool they need to use and what feature in those tools they need to use. The idea here is to help people segment how they work and give them some guidance, even if some people will do it differently. But having a common guidance help to work better together. Having the same bearings will help definitely. And I'm also made this one just to explain that a lot of communication, even with external contacts, can happen still in Teams. So external contact using Teams, you can team chat with them directly. You can add their email address and they will tell you they're external. There's a limitation here. If the organization doesn't allow that, that won't work. But if they allow team people to chat with external users, you will be able to do that. So you can engage chatting with people through Teams chat, even if they're not in your organization. If you're working on an external project, you can invite people to your team as a guest. Same thing, it depends on the governance that is in your organization, but still you don't have to send an email. You're working on a project. That's what I'm doing with almost my customers. That's what I'm asking them. They don't have Teams. It's okay. I just invite them into alternate as guests, and they can join, and they have a link, and they open Teams in a browser, so they don't have to install the app at first. Maybe after working with us, they will deploy Teams, but they can still chat with us in a Teams and have all the context transparent. So I think that's also another scenario if they need to communicate um, in a around a project, then you can invite them to a team and then they can work with you. You don't have to send an email, have a different version of document and forgetting to add the right people in the email, and so everybody's losing context. So the only time you really need Outlook is when you have external contact that are not using Teams, um, and they're not in a project. So um, that's maybe the first time you contact somebody, that will be through email, through Outlook. But other than that, it's always Teams can be used and leveraged. So this matrix shows that even if you're working with external people, you could use Teams, and so also shows how you can work uh, when you meet people. So Teams meeting works for everybody. You don't need to have an app. Uh, you can be you can attend a Teams meeting even if you have dial-in. You can just attend it with a phone. So you can call in a Teams meeting. So you don't really need an app, and if you can join it through the browser if you don't have the app. So the rest is more, what difference between Teams meeting, Teams webcast, and Teams live event, explaining some differences. And talking about that, I have a matrix that explains the difference in more details between Teams meeting, Teams webinar, Teams live event. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. So there's some scenarios, some number of user limitations that are listed here, so you can have a better understanding of when to use what. Most of the time it's going to be Teams meetings. Sometimes it's going to be Teams webinar webcast, and rarely it's going to be live event. So this matrix helps to understand, when to use what. It's rare that you're going to use Teams webinar or Teams live events, but it still happens. This is an infographic coming from AFPoint, I think. I thought it was interesting to position, teams depending on the audience, large audience or other conference, large audience or small audience. So that's another way to position Microsoft Stack. There's another one in the speed of you need, high tempo, how quickly you need to communicate, which tool you're going to use depending on how quick you need to communicate. So that's another segmentation that I thought it was interesting to share with you. Communication and collaboration. I found this matrix a long time ago, and then I reshaped it. It's also based on the size and the urgency. So I think it was interesting to have also this visual, this infographic. I don't know if it can help some of you to decide, depending on the size and the urgency, you can decide what tool. Maybe it's easier to figure out, what you need to use. For the files, I have this also this simple matrix that I like to share with all my customers. So when you're working on a file, what do you do with the file? So I want to work on a document. Then you can store in OneDrive. I want to share a document. Then you probably need to open a Teams and chat and share the document with the people in the group chat that you invited to share the document. If you want to share several documents, then maybe go to OneDrive and use the share library wizard. That will help you to share this document. But if you want to share several documents and chat with people about them, maybe the best way is to go in Teams and create a team if you don't have a team, and share the different documents in one team. So it's starting to get more organized. And finally, if you want to share several documents, but to a wide audience, not a team, but wide audience and read-only mode, then SharePoint is the way to go. So it's another way to present that is, I work on a draft, I go into OneDrive. I work on the final document, I can store it directly to SharePoint. Maybe I can start with OneDrive and then go to SharePoint, or maybe I can start in OneDrive and then go to Teams. That's my process. Is most of the time I'm starting to work on a document in OneDrive directly because I don't have a team yet to share it with my team or with the customer team. So I'm starting to work in OneDrive. Sometimes also I'm working directly with the customer in the team's environment, either in their environment, in their tenant, or in our tenant where I invite them or where they invite me. And I still want to have the document in my OneDrive for trackability to be sure that it's not altered by the customer. So I store my document in OneDrive, but might be you might have some discussion because then you have a duplication of documents between OneDrive and Teams. But that's my process, and everybody needs to find their best process. I think that's all. Hope it was helpful.